to start on the questions. We start with place 2. So, Mr. Moss, you get the first question. So I'll read these very carefully, and to anybody, when I read the question, if you want me to repeat it, I'll be happy to do that. Just ask me to do it. So, all right, Mr. Moss, here we go. Do you believe that the city is a facilitator of growth or a regulator of growth? In other words, should the city find ways to accommodate growth or ways to prevent or delay growth? Why or why not?
I believe the city needs to be a facilitator of growth. I think that it's important to get our growth plan right and get it right the first time we do that. And it's, you know, what I see as far as growth, it's going to be forced down our throat whether we like it or not. We can go kicking and screaming, but or we can plan for it and move towards it. I think the council that we have now and the mayor that we've had has really done an extremely good job of that. I'm highly impressed with him, to be honest with you. And it's a situation where I can help with that issue, but as a councilman, you really just, or they drive the agenda, the mayor does, and so does the city manager. And we need to work with them to help them do that. I'm so excited about our new city manager. She's doing a heck of a job. And I'm really proud of the fact that our city council and the mayor chose this woman. She will do us a heck of a job. And so I'm very pleased with it. All I can do is help. I want to be on the city council to protect Sylvia's back and give her what she needs to do the job and make sure that she has everything she needs to do the job. That's who's going to drive our growth. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Meyer, you have a minute and a half.
Thank you for the question. I'm going to answer both. I think we can accommodate growth wisely. And why don't we want to facilitate growth with good development that works for everyone? Everybody wants to be in Bastrop. We know that. Growth has been happening. They know the secret. But we got to make it work for everybody. We've got to make it work for the people that are here, the people that have been here a long time, the people that are coming. We can do this with proper codes because that's what's going to regulate your growth. We must establish that. We must be fair with every citizen, and I'm talking north, south, east, and west in this town, because things can't work for one side of the city, just like health can't work for part of your body and have a healthy body. Well, we can't do that in the city either. So we need to work for everyone in this city, and I think we can do both.
All right, Mr. Moss, you have another minute if you have anything else you want to say or any rebuttal.
No rebuttal.
All right. All right, we'll move to question 2. This is for the place 3 candidates. All right, Mr. Plunkett, you get this one. It's a minute and a half to answer this question. Since November 2019, there have been lots of complaints from developers and business owners about the B3 code. It was touted for its flexibility when it comes to development. Is the problem with the implementation of the code? Is the code just flawed, or is it the planning and development department?
Thank you. I would definitely have to say it's both. There are a lot of things in the code that just flat don't make sense. Like, you know, no parking in what they call the first layer, which means, you know, in front of the building. You know, for a lot of businesses, that just doesn't work. You're not going to have, you know, imagine H-E-B if you could only park in the back or across the street. I mean, how does that even work? But there was also implementation has been a problem as well. As a member of the EDC board, I sat in on the development review committee and saw what they did with projects, you know, behind the scenes without the developer present, and it was terrible the way they would, you know, say, oh, this person doesn't know what they're doing, they don't know what they want, and just be so dismissive about what was going on. And these people are trying to start businesses. They're trying to you know, maybe move their business here to Bastrop, and that's the kind of attitude that just drove me crazy and drove me crazy enough to run for city council.
Ms. Kaler, you have a minute and a half also on that subject.
Could I ask you to repeat the question, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Since November 2019, there have been lots of complaints from developers and business owners about the B3 code. It was touted for its flexibility when it comes to development. Is the problem with the implementation of the code? Is the code just flawed, or is it the Planning and Development Department?
Thank you, I appreciate it. Well, I think the city council did a really great job in engaging the community and gleaning what is important to the community as we develop. Is there room for improvement in code? There's always room for improvement with code. But there were problems with the old code, and there are problems with this one. I think the primary issue has been that there's a lot of growth coming, and we have been understaffed. And every city in the state is understaffed. You can look at the jobs board for municipal jobs, and there are a lot of open jobs and not enough people to fill those jobs. So I think working as a council member to get granular and look at specific things that need to be improved, like the sign code, I am absolutely for it. But if you're just talking about code generally, you know, the community spoke as to what they wanted. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind as we make those changes and make sure that the community gets engaged ahead of any changes to that code. Thank you.
Mr. Plunkett, you have another minute if you have to add anything.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the citizens did speak at the time, and I believe what they were sold was a bill of goods. I think there are a lot of great things in this code. There really are, but there's a lot of really bad stuff in there too. And if we can separate the wheat from the chaff, we can make a good code. There's a lot of things that it did right, like improving the ability to be able to add structures to your lot and things like that. That was definitely in need of fixing, but there's a whole lot more that didn't make a lot of sense, like 70% glazing and things of that nature.
All right, thank you. All right, question number 3, and I just want to say, candidates, and place 2, you can't escape the B3 code either, so here comes another question. So, Ms. Meyer, you get to go first on this. The city spent a lot of money on the B3 form-based code. Do you think that code has achieved the goals it was designed to achieve, and why or why not?
So I was here the whole time before the codes were put in, during the process of the codes, and I'm here now. And I've seen the good, the bad, and the... I do think there are some good things about the codes. And I think there are a lot of things that really need to be fixed about the codes. Because we are finding with the codes, it's affecting our low-income population the most, and that is not fair. We have a lot of work to do with the codes. I think our department with Ms. Carrillo, our new city manager, is doing a bang-up job, and she is addressing this head-on. And she's got us going in the right direction. But we have a lot of work to do. I look forward to working with the city, with responsible development, to make all of the amendments to the codes work for everyone, and to fulfill the wishes of the population.
All right, Mr. Moss, minute and a half.
Can you ask the question again, please?
Sure. The city spent a lot of money on the B3 form-based code. Do you think that code has achieved the goals it was designed to achieve, and why or why not?
I believe it has not achieved what it was designed to do because it just hasn't been able to be implemented the way everybody wanted it to, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And I served 3 years on the a variance board, and it was interesting that all we saw come across there was actually big corporations for signage only. Mostly everything was that way. And I couldn't figure out why in the world we weren't seeing one of our neighbors come in and says, I need a fence permit. I need to move a fence a foot away from a 300-year-old tree. Well, I found out that they charged $3,500 to go before that board just to ask for a variance. I think that's kind of outrageous, to be honest with you. And I think it's not the code that's pushing that so much. It's just the processes that are pushing it. And we've got to really take a look at the codes. It's really designed for a historic town, which is great, you know, to protect the historic part of Bastrop itself, but it's not really good for the rest of the town. It's a big difference in the signage between downtown and the corridor 71 out there. If you're driving 70 miles an hour through there, you want to have a little bit bigger sign than the ones that you can have downtown. So it's just a matter of it can be fixed, and they're well on their way to get it fixed. I feel very confident that our city manager is going to solve that problem. She's taking a lot of my thunder over the fact that she's fixing everything that I thought I was going to be able to help.
Can everybody hear Mr. Moss okay? I can't hear the speakers up here. I can hear hers just fine. Are y'all hearing okay? Not as well. Can't hear him as well because I can't hear the speakers when Mr. Moss is speaking.
Check, 1, 2, check. Check, 1, 2, check. Check, 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 check.
Okay.
Thank you.
We want to give everybody equal airtime here. So, all right, Ms. Meyer, you still have a minute rebuttal.
And my response to that is right. Of course, it hasn't met the intent because we're having many issues that we need to correct. My favorite saying from my favorite poet is, when we know better, we do better. So it's time to do better by the codes. One great thing that happened, though, and Mr. Moss mentioned the $3,500 permit fee. The city council last week voted to change that, along with a lot of other permit fees that were way too high. So that $3,500 has now gone down to $500. And the great news is our wonderful city manager also has the power to adjust that for people.
All right, thank you. All right, question number 4, we go back to place 3 over here. Ms. Kaler, you get to go first on this one. All right, what can the city do to ensure that teachers, police, firefighters, and other important workers can afford to live in the city?
Sure. So we really need diverse housing. What that means is housing across different price points, different types, so that we have housing for our civil servants, for our service sector workers, so that we can have a safe community and have our businesses supported by folks that live in Bastrop. To do that, you know, I think, as I said earlier, a lot of the work has been done, and so we need to continue to make the small changes necessary to ease development constraints. But development is coming, and I think that the groundwork has been laid for that. And as a council member, I would just set policy that would continue to support that effort.
All right, Mr. Plunkett, a minute and a half.
Yeah, the first thing you do is you don't drive up the price of development with just onerous regulation and costs for permitting and things like that. I was very proud to vote for the lowering the variance cost from $3,800 to $500. That was a huge step in the right direction. What we also did was on that same meeting was we stopped the necessity to replat your property anytime you wanted to do any kind of improvement. That very much disproportionately affected lower income people. It was, if you wanted to put a fence up, you had to replat your land. I mean, that was crazy. And there was tons of things like that, and we're just whacking away at it little by little as much as we can. And those are the ways that you keep housing affordable, is you don't put artificial cost into the product, because every bit of that cost comes from the consumer.
All right, Ms. Kaler, you have another minute.
Thank you. I agree with the changes that City Council made last week. I agree that it was onerous on taxpayers. What we need to keep in mind is that developments need to be fiscally sustainable. And what that means is that we as taxpayers aren't paying for these developments 20 years down the line. So when it comes to something simple like a variance and changing that fee, great. But we need to temper that with developer fees that will cover expenses so that once they're done, once they've left and made their money, that 10 years down the line, we aren't paying to fix something, that those monies are in reserves and that it's sustainable. Thank you.
All right. Question number 5, back to Mr. Moss over here in place 2. And you get the first question here. To serve on the city council, there is time needed to review a lengthy packet, twice a month city council meetings, and the council members serve on boards and commissions. There are also many other community meetings and gatherings where your attendance would be expected. What personal changes will be required in order to fulfill the necessary time requirements of council service?
Another day in my life. I am a president of a 300-member pickleball association that I work a lot at, and that's just a small thing to change to have the time to do it. I can commit the time. I'm retired. Being retired, you stay busier than you ever did when you worked, let me tell you. You have no excuses that you can't get it done. You don't get to go on vacation. You don't get days off. So you have time, and time is precious, and time is important to have. And I can dedicate the time. This is important. This time of my life, it's time to give back, and give back is important. And I've spent the time to do that. And my wife will turn me off a little bit on a honey-do list to allow me to do it. So I can do it without any problems. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Meyer?
I have no problem whatsoever committing the time because I'm doing it right now. I'm already attending the meetings. I'm going to as many things as I can. I'm going to the city council meetings. I'm reading the packets. I've been on P&Z for 6 years, and I can talk to you about packets. But when I get a packet, I drive around to the location, and I find out I need a visual on what's going to happen. So reading a packet, to me, doesn't really tell me the whole story. I want to talk to the citizens that are affected by what's in the packet. But I have no time whatsoever committing the time. In fact, I look forward to it because my favorite thing to do is be out there interacting with our citizens.
All right. Mr. Moss, you have another minute if you want to add anything? Okay. All right. All right. Question number 6, back over here to the place 3. Mr. Plunkett, this will be first for you. Are you open to allowing for more diverse types of housing on a range of lot sizes?
Of course. I think I'm very much a free market person. Whatever is marketable, to the extent that it doesn't infringe upon the rights of the property owners around that property, that should be allowed. The way that Bastrop got to be the interesting, kitschy town that it is from people building what they wanted to on their own property. It was from property rights. Property rights are really important, and it's a stalwart ideal in Texas politics in general, and very much something that I'm committed to keeping up with. So yeah, I'm for whatever is marketable. Whatever anybody wants to build, they should be able to build it for the most part, like I said, unless it infringes on the rights of the adjoining property owners.
All right. Ms. Kaler?
I agree with Mr. Plunkett. We need housing diversity. I had some older residents tell me they live on Main Street, and they said, look, we live in an old home. Our house is 2-story. We'd love to downsize, but we don't want to leave Bastrop, and there's no place for us to go. There's not the type of housing that we'd like to go to. So it needs to be in the forefront of our minds as we look to how this community is going to develop in the future, that we have that housing diversity that supports our older residents who don't want to leave and supports, like I said, our service sector workers and our civil servants.
All right. Mr. Plunkett, anything else you want to add to that?
No, thank you.
All right. All right, we'll move back to place 2. Ms. Meyer, you get the first question. This is question number 7. To function well, the city must maintain strong working relationships with Bastrop County, the Bastrop Independent School District, the Bastrop Chamber of Commerce, and neighboring cities, Do you believe these relationships exist at the levels they should, or is there room for improvement? And what should be done to maintain or improve these relationships?
I believe now we are on the right direction. We are communicating with the school, with the county, with the chamber. However, in the past, maybe we weren't, and there was need for improvement. Our new city manager is straight on point with this. She just said yesterday at a meeting I was at, our work together determines the work that's going to come out for everyone. We can't isolate ourselves. It's like being in one big pool of water and thinking that something's going to stay here and you're going to be over here. It's not. We're not independent. We have to work together for the betterment of our city. It's in the best interest of all the citizens.
All right, Mr. Moss?
I believe they're on the straight path also, but I think it's highly important to really build on those relationships, because I believe, it starts at home with your town, and then it goes to the county, then it goes to the state, then it goes to the United States. It's kind of how the daisy chains up. It's all about safety and working together in times of that you would have a problem like we had in 2011 that burned down half this town. To be able to work together and have things in place to do that. And it's this Bastrop is one of the most dangerous towns to live in per capita in Texas, which is kind of a shocking statistic. And that's per capita though. And so it's a situation where, there's over 1,700 meth labs out here in the county. It's critical. That we make sure that a new police chief, or the police chiefs we design, has it right, and we can support them. It's very important to be able to work with the county people to make absolutely sure it's all driven around safety and the quality of life issues that we need for that. Thank you.
Ms. Meyer, do you have anything else to add?
I agree totally with that, and I would just like to add in, I'm going to take my hat off to our mayor, because she's been working with the legislature to recover hotel motel tax money for our city, and this takes a lot of work. You've got to be able to work with people, and going up and testifying at the legislature probably isn't the most fun thing in the world, but she did, and we're working toward recovering the percentage, the 6% of the hotel motel money, to get back to this city that we can use. We get 7. We've got a bill going on right now, proposed to give us estates. So I take my hat off to the direction we're going, and I thank the mayor for that, too.
All right, we'll move to question number 8. Ms. Kaler, you get this. So here it comes. Bastrop appears to many to be having more success attracting retail development than in attracting employment-centered development. Should we be working to attract employment-centered opportunities, and if so, how should we be going about it?
I think we should be doing both. I think as we grow the businesses that we have now, businesses that facilitate greater employment will come. I think as we support through policies our police department and our schools, more businesses will want to come here, and as we create greater housing diversity, more businesses focused on employment will want to come here. I would like to see us have a reinvestment plan in the businesses that are here now for tenants, so that they can hire more staff, pay a higher wage to the staff that they have, and do any improvements to their structures that they need to do to help facilitate that strong commercial district in those businesses, so that we have business retention, because it's not just that we need businesses to come in, we need them to stay. Thank you.
Mr. Plunkett?
Yes, retail is very important, and it is it's what got us to where we are. We've hung our hat on retail development and retail sales tax for a long time now, and it's done really well for us. We have a very large retail sales zone from which we pull from, and it's been great. But we do need jobs that pay a living wage, and can and being on the EDC board for the 6 years or so, you know, I spent a lot of time working on that, and we have found that really what they're looking for is an educated workforce. So we need to help the schools, and I was proud to vote last summer to allow the schools to build Mena Elementary, the extension that they're doing now, without paying additional fees for flood, because they said they were not going to add any more water to the watershed. And we also didn't want to set a precedent to other developers that this was the correct way to pay.
All right, Ms. Kaler, you have another minute?
Well, I'd like to speak to Mr. Plunkett's decision regarding Mena Elementary. I've spoken with him about this. What that did was raise our taxes. And so I want to support our schools, and I want to support our businesses. But I also, if, you know, nobody up here can say that we're not going to raise taxes, but there was no public discussion ahead of that, and the city's engineer was not allowed to speak on that item. And so I hope that in the future, when we're making those kinds of decisions, that we allow the city engineer the opportunity to address the community before that type of decision was made, because I don't know if that was the right decision or the wrong decision. I just know that there wasn't the discussion that I hoped to hear before my taxes went up.
All right, candidates, we're going to just take a short break here. I'm going to have Becky come back up. She has some announcements to make. So take a deep breath, drink of water, relax. Here we go.
But you can only relax for like 30 seconds. It's a big, big break. So just a few announcements. Early voting starts a week, or this coming Monday on the 24th, and goes to Friday the 29th. And the time is 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then we have 2 additional early voting dates on May 1st and 2nd, which will be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., with Election Day on Saturday, May 6th. Voting locations are on our BastropVotes.com website. Just go to our voter information tab, and you can see all those sites across the city and the county. To save time at the polls, you can take in a paper ballot. And I'm going to tell you from personal experience, I've gone in and not printed off that ballot and discovered, oh my gosh, there's an office we're electing for. There's a constitutional amendment on there that I was not aware of. So I highly suggest that you print out a ballot in advance and make an informed decision. You cannot take in an electronic device such as your phone or a tablet, but you can carry in that paper ballot. I also want you to know that on May 6th, there is a Bastrop Independent School District school bond for $320 million. I'm going to tell you that the Bastrop Chamber of Commerce is supporting this. If you would like to go to our website, there is a press release as well as a resolution passed by our governing body made up of our board of directors elected from more than 800 members and supporting 14,000 jobs. So that is where we stand on it, and is at a 0 tax rate increase. So we're just asking for permission to open the vault to access the money for the school bond. Also, outside in the lobby, there are signs if you want to take one and put it in your yard as showing support for the school bond. It's for our support our BISD Kids Political Action Committee. So there are people in this room who personally served on either the Citizens Advisory Task Force or are serving on the PAC, including myself. If you would like to ask questions about it and why it's important, please see myself, or I can direct you to someone else in this room that served along with me. Anyways, and if you have written questions, we are trying to allow time for at least 4 questions from the floor, and so I will take those questions up now. And then candidates, are you ready to go for the second half? Judge Stone, I'll turn it back over to you.
Last week, we had some real good questions from the floor, so don't hesitate. If your memory has been jogged from some of these questions, we'd welcome those. We have 4 more questions available from myself, so looks like we'll get to go back to place 2. Mr. Moss, you get the first one. This is question number 9, and I guess you're ready to go.
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. What infrastructure improvements are needed now, and what improvements should we be planning for in the future in order to make Bastrop competitive for job creation and growth at a level compatible or comparable to similar cities in Central Texas? Or are we already where we should be?
Well, we got growth coming, so infrastructure is, I think the city so far has done an extremely good job. The wastewater plant, the new wastewater plant out there is amazing. That should carry us for 20 years, they say. Very few small towns are able to say that. And I think there's a lot of structure really is driven, that needs to be done, more driven around roads and roadways. Some common sense solutions seems to me to take the road that runs behind Lowe's and tie it in behind HEB. When I first moved here, I listened to a podcast that were talking about if you live downtown, it takes you 6 or 7 minutes to get to Lowe's, but it takes you 30 minutes to get home. And that's the reason why, because the corridor on 71. The road behind that's going to go behind Ascension needs to come back and go all the way to Pecan Park so you can get to Walmart. And that opens that area up there too. And I think it's more driven around roads and traffic lights and traffic congestion and things like that. Infrastructure, I think they've taken and done a really good job of doing that. And I think they'll stay on top of it. That's it.
Okay, Ms. Meyer?
Infrastructure is one of my big things, and my saying is, let's quit kicking the can down the road that we can't drive on. Now, it takes money. It takes money to do that, doesn't it? But we can manage how to do this with a phased, comprehensive infrastructure plan for our roads. If we don't know what we need completely, how do we plan for it? Let's look at every road in the whole city. Let's see what the conditions they are in, and let's get a plan to start working. It may not happen for someone in the back row whose road is not as bad as someone who's in the front row, but we can start, but we gotta have a plan, we gotta have a cost. I agree with Mr. Moss on the Simsboro treatment wastewater plant. 10 million gallons a day on less than 1 acre of land. It's amazing. And capacity to increase. That's 3 tanks on that. So yes, infrastructure needs to be improved, but we can have a plan to do it, and we can get it done.
Mr. Moss, anything else you want to add?
Yes, there is. Analysis by paralysis or paralysis by analysis. That can happen sometimes when you think too much about what you're trying to get done and not do it. So we need to get after a lot of things and just rather than sit with it, we need to make absolutely sure that we can get it done when it comes to the roads. A common sense approach is to look at quality of life issues just in nothing else but maybe a red light there at Main and Chestnut. If you're coming north on Main trying to cross Chestnut, you may sit through that light 4 or 5 times before you can get through there. Coming south, it's not too big of a problem because everybody's wanting to turn right, turn left, or do what, but it locks it up going down. So the biggest problem is why in the world cannot we cycle that light? And I know that the Department of Transportation owns it, not us, but I bet we can get that fixed and that'll change your life. It's important. Thank you.
We need to turn the amplification up again on his speaker. We're having some trouble. Folks are indicating they can't quite hear you.
All right, I'll speak up.
You're going to have to speak up a little more, I guess. Okay. All right. Question number 10. Looks like it goes to Mr. Plunkett over here on place 3. So here we go. In light of current and anticipated growth, are the city's current management and staffing structures sufficient to maintain an appropriate level of service?
Well, I have every confidence in the world that our new city manager, Ms. Carrillo, will get the staffing that she needs. She knows that she has the full support of council at this point, and she has, I believe she's gotten everything she's asked for, and that in terms of staff, and that's really, I think, the way it should be. It's our job as council to set policy, and it's her job to execute it, and she can't execute it if we don't give her the tools that she needs to do that. So it's really as simple as that.
All right, Ms. Kaler?
Would you repeat the question?
Sure. In light of current and anticipated growth, are the city's current management and staffing structures sufficient to maintain an appropriate level of service?
No, but Ms. Carrillo is doing everything in her power to improve that and make those changes. And, you know, we have 4 open positions, I believe, on the planning department right now that we need to fill in order to have that staffing for that department. I know we have other positions open in other departments. As a member of city council, I would work to facilitate her having whatever she needs to grow the staff that she needs to serve this community. That's something that I did as a planning director, and as a public works director, I worked to hire folks and to create a budget for those departments that was able to sustain itself. And so I would work to help Ms. Carrillo from the other side of the dais and set the policy that she needs to run the city with a greater level of community service.
Mr. Plunkett, anything else you want to add? Okay. Question 11, back to place 2. Ms. Meyer, you're first on this question. If you are elected and the council votes to approve an action or a policy that you do not personally support, what do you believe is your responsibility toward that policy or action?
Well, being on the Planning and Zoning Commission for 6 years, I can tell you that sometimes I am the lone voter on different decisions, and that's okay, you know, because I always try to make the decision in the best interest of the city, but we're all going to have differences in the way we see things. And the whole point of being on a council is working with everyone on the council for the betterment of the city. There's no lone rangers on the city council. There's working together for you, the citizens of this town. So even if I didn't agree with it, maybe I haven't in the past on planning and zoning, but I still support what the town is doing. And that's what my job is, to work for you, for the betterment of the town.
All right, Mr. Moss?
I agree. It's the council that votes. Whether you're 1 to 5, 5 to 1, 5, whatever type thing, it's whatever passes, you support. You stand behind it. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And so you have to support the total council when they make that decision. Because you disagree doesn't give you a lone responsibility to do something different. Support it. Move on. Fight another day. Thank you.
Ms. Meyer, anything else you want to add?
Nothing else.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. All right, question number 12, and then we'll go on to the submitted questions from the floor. This goes back to place 3, and Ms. Kaler, you get the first one here. Question 12. In times of economic downturn, it can be difficult to make decisions on how resources are to be allocated. How would you approach determining wants versus needs when deciding where money should be spent?
Absolutely, that's a really great point, and we're experiencing that now firsthand in a whole host of different ways. And I think as council, the first thing we have to do is go back to our responsibility under our charter, the master plan, which is fiscal sustainability. Is what we are doing, is what we are voting on fiscally sustainable for the community? And that should always be the first thing that we consider when making a decision. And then, is it beneficial to our community? Is it bringing services to our community that could help us be insulated from those kind of grander, national ups and downs? And continuing to support our small business community is one of the best ways to do that. When we have independent local business, we're able to weather those storms better. that other communities are. And I think that's why you've seen so many people post-COVID want to come to Bastrop. It's because of the community that has grown here, that has that facilitates that. That's certainly why my husband and I came here. My husband's a musician, and all of his work went away in one day. But you know, in Bastrop, we were both able to continue to work and participate in the community in a way that was safe, in a way that was responsible, and in a way that supported us, you know, the community economically. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Plunkett?
Yes, COVID took our revenue from, you know, 100% to zero in one day as well. And the way we reacted to that as a business was to try to keep our staff off of unemployment. And okay, what did we always want to do that we didn't have time to do because we couldn't close? All right, so we go to work and we try to improve our business and improve the safety of our building. And you know, what do we get? We get the city putting us a stop work order and getting in the way every single step of the way and taking the maximum amount of time for every single decision. And all that did was extend the amount of time that we were closed. It took people who could have been working and making wages. It's just, it was unconscionable to me. And that's what you do when times are tough. You buckle down and you work harder and you fix things that need to be fixed.
Okay. Ms. Kaler, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I would just add that, you know, I think one of our greatest assets is our small business community. You know, I think we're want to find another small town in Texas that has the quality of restaurants. Thank you, Kevin, and the small business arts community that we have. And so if we as council can create a policy that reinvests some of those tax dollars into those businesses, then what we can do is again be able to have a council-driven policy that helps us as a community weather those storms, because you know, a rising tide raises all boats. And so that's the best way we can help one another to make sure that you know, we are able to stay solvent during times of economic upheaval.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move to questions from the floor, and I think I can interpret most of these. We will move to place 2. Mr. Moss, you're going to be the first one to experience this hot topic. So,
I'll speak up.
And I think there may be more into this, but I'm going to read it just like it is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you think that the city council should have two or three seats on the Bastrop Economic Development Commission board?
That it?
That's it.
Okay.
And I don't know if they're thinking about the number
Right.
or whatever, but you just answer the question.
Okay. Well, I think about the Economic Development Board. I think that's something that really needs to be looked at real hard and what it's going to take to make it really successful. I think there's I don't know how many acres out there. It's a lot, 145 acres or something like that. And what we need to do is be able to bring industry here. We need jobs, not cash register jobs, to be able to grow this town the way it needs to grow. We need some high-tech industries out here, and we should be able to find some because we have the ability with the land out there and the developments, beautiful properties out there to do that with. We just have to figure out economic. If it takes adding more people, you add more people. That's the case. But I would think that that's not necessarily the answer to it. It's finding the right people to be able to do this with. And I hope we can do that. There's been some challenges over there for sure. They've gone through a couple of CEOs, I think, in the past very short years, but and don't know why that was. bad choices, I guess. But you can't choose well all the time. But you got to be able to find the right people to do that job. And I think there's some real good people serving on that board at this time. I know them. And they just need to buckle down and find somebody to get control of it and develop it better. Thank you.
Ms. Meyer?
Could you repeat that question for me,
Sure.
please?
Do you think that the city council should have 2 or 3 seats on the Bastrop Economic Development Commission board?
Well, it's structured to have 4 seats on the BEDC board. The city council is structured to have 4 seats on the board and 3 non-council members on it. And it's imperative we understand the relationship of the BEDC with the city. It's like a parent-child relationship, with the city being the head. BEDC is the child. They give the city gives the BEDC direction and insight. So because of that, I see no issue having 4 council members on the BEDC board to complete its 7 members. I think communication's been a little bit of issues maybe in the past with the council and the BEDC, but that's being addressed, and I think they're on the right. I was just at the meeting last night, the joint meeting with BEDC and council, so it was a real positive meeting, and I think they're heading in the right direction.
Mr. Moss, you have anything else you want to add? Do not. All right. We'll move to place 3, question number 14, and I want to thank whoever submitted this one personally. I appreciate you asking this. What are your thoughts? Let's see, Mr. Plunkett, you get this first. What are your thoughts about the historic Iron Bridge? Would you support spending the money to fix it for a pedestrian crossing instead of waiting for a grant?
Well, it depends on how long you have to wait for a grant, doesn't it? Because it's going to cost a lot of money to do. I think it's worth doing. But we definitely should look at all options to get it funded. There's so much money out there from the federal and state level that we would be foolish to not try to get it. However, at a certain point, you've got to fish or cut bait, right? You've got to, it does need to be fixed before it falls into the river, and then it would cost even more to fix it, I'm sure. So, so certainly, I think it's a great icon of the city, and we should do everything we can to preserve it, of course.
Ms. Kaler?
I agree with Kevin. Our bridge is iconic. It's one of only a handful in the country that are constructed that way. I think it is absolutely worth protecting and preserving any way that we need to do that. There is grant money available, and if what we need is someone just to spearhead writing the grants, then I will volunteer my services. You know, if we can't get grant money, then I think, you know, if we're able to budget it without impacting other city services, then we should. But I think that there's a way to do this that is not an expense to the tax dollar, that uses available grant funding to do it and preserve it for, you know, another 100 years.
Mr. Plunkett, anything else you want to add? Okay. Well, we had it on here, and I didn't think we did either, but the spreadsheet says yes. Doing rebuttals on these? Yeah. So, but that's a good question. I was going to ask her. Thanks for asking. All right, question number 15, back to place 2. Ms. Meyer, this would be for you. All right, what would your recommendations be to alleviate the downtown parking problem?
Thank you, whoever submitted that question, because that's
Thank you.
one of the top list. Downtown parking, been downtown over 37 years. We have a problem. I bet y'all didn't know that, did you, when you come downtown? But I did find out that when we put the parking lot in at Pine and Water Street, and redid that 2018, it is structurally supportive of a parking garage. So that work's been done right there. So how about a parking garage? Let's see how much that's going to cost. It's an easy fix right there. Another thing that's happened is the county last week on their agenda is looking at a municipal court building. So we have court downtown, and when court's going on, it takes a lot of parking away from downtown. However, if there is a municipal court structure where all courts will be held, that's going to free up some more parking downtown too. So that's my plan.
All right, Mr. Moss?
I agree 100%. Needs to be behind Grace's right there. They could dig down, go 2 to 3 stories down if they like, then maybe the top 2 or 3 stories on top of that, which would be just 3 stories up, make offices there or retail shops or restaurants or multi-use space there that eventually would pay for the construction of the parking garage itself. I think, you know, over on the other side of Chestnut, where the post office is, I would imagine that the post office is going to disappear and move down to someplace else. Eventually, they need to. The terrible facility for them, and maybe get it out on 71. That might be a spot also for on the other side to do the very same thing. The possibility, it's going to have to be multi-story, I think, any approach that we take on it, and figure out a way to help pay for it by building it so that we can have multi-use of that also, just not just no ugly parking garage. We can go down, but we can also put pretty things on top of it. It'd be real neat venues that you could put on the very top of a parking garage with umbrellas and all kinds of things that you could have up there. So that's what I would suggest doing. There's 2 places to do it. We really need the card to do that particular thing. Thanks.
Ms. Bryan?
I'm going to have a difference of opinion on that one because we've already got the integrity of the structure there, that's there in the parking lot. So let's don't waste money going down and tearing all that up that we did in 2018. Let's go up. Parking is the issue. It's not more retail. It's not more restaurants. We have that downtown, and we've got some empty buildings that need to be occupied with that. Parking is the issue, so the money goes into building up the parking garage. One little thing I want to say about the post office being downtown. My dad was postmaster here in this town for many years. The post office is part of your downtown community. That's where people come together. It can't all just be retail. It can't all be office. It's got to be a mix of community and uses downtown.
All right, last question, and let me qualify this. The second sentence does not have a punctuation mark at the end, so I don't know if it's a question or a statement. So I'm just going to read it, and you just take it.
I'll do my best.
You just do your best. That's all right. And Carrie, you get to go first. I know you're anxious here. What is the next new phase of Bastrop? Our new image and next big tourism appeal?
Well, I'm not really quite sure how to answer that. I think Bastrop has a strong identity. We have a strong community. We have beautiful historic district and a beautiful bridge. I think our identity is here. I think the challenge that's going to be facing us as a community is preserving what we have as we face the growth that we know is coming.
All right, Mr. Plunkett?
Well, I certainly don't think it's up to city council to try to determine what our next new identity is going to be. The citizens determine that. And the next big attraction, hey, you know, I'm willing to listen. Whatever's, you know, whoever wants to build it, let's talk about it. I think there's, you know, when 5 people sit up on a dais and try to determine what the next big thing is going to be, you are almost 100% guaranteed to fail, because that's not where these kind of things come from. These kind of things come from the people, and they come from the people who bring the money and who bring their talents and their energy. If you know, that just to me reeks of central planning. I'm not interested in that.
Okay, Ms. Kaler, anything else?
Yeah, I agree with Kevin, and I think, you know, when the city undertook the master planning process a few years ago, there were 12 public engagement meetings, there were walking tours, there were bike tours, there was a lot of discussion about what what Bastrop is, who Bastrop is, and how we want to be in the future. And so I think it's our jobs to, as council members, to be good stewards of what has been communicated to us and put in place policy that perpetuates that.
Candidates, we just run out of questions. Isn't that something? But you still have to give closing statements, so you're going to keep talking, and it works this way. Mr. Plunkett, Ms. Kaler, Mr. Moss, Ms. Meyer, 2 minutes for your closing statements. So Ms. Plunkett, if you'll start, we'll just go down the line.
I came to city council a little over a year ago with a mission. With the help of the rest of council, we've made a tremendous amount of progress toward making Bastrop the kind of town that the natives can be proud of and one that new arrivals will feel welcome. We hired a new city manager who is an expert in development and is dedicated to customer service. Customer service was the attitude of the city employees I met when I arrived in Bastrop with my family 11 years ago. Over the years, I saw much more bureaucratic attitude creep in, and it seemed to be emanating from the planning department. Changing that attitude was my reason for running last year. We've made more progress than I hoped we could in the first year. I'm running for re-election this year so that we don't lose momentum. I'm convinced the changes that are coming are necessary to create a city that can hold its own in the rapid growth environment in which we find ourselves. One that has amenities we all want with a tax rate we can still afford. This is achievable with good development policy and the right attitude at City Hall. Once again, thanks to the Chamber for this opportunity. Thanks to all those who helped make it happen. Thanks to my opponent, Carrie, for having the courage to put herself out there. It's not easy to run for office, and I respect those who run an honest campaign and give voters a choice. I know she has a bright future regardless of the result. Most of all, thanks to you for listening, for doing your part to be an informed voter. I ask for your vote, and please encourage your friends and neighbors to participate. I'm always interested in hearing from constituents, and I'm very easy to locate. I'm either at Old Town or Gracie's or Piney Creek. I'm also easy to find on Facebook, even though I don't know how to work it that well.
Ms. Kaler.
Thank you, Kevin. And I just want to offer that regardless of what happens May 6th, the city is going to be well represented. I hope that as a member of City Council, what I can bring to the table is professional experience. As a planning director, I walked into a situation where there were customer service issues, there were development issues, there were drainage issues. Those are all things that I think will sound familiar to most of the people in this room. And what I did was come in and clean up a mess. And so I would like to bring that professional expertise to the other side of the dais and work to support our city manager in those efforts to facilitate greater customer service to our community, so that as we have development, which we know is coming, that it's fair, that it makes sense, that it's fiscally sustainable, and that it's something that we get to enjoy for the next 100 years. The decisions that get made in the next 2 years are decisions that will echo through eternity for hundreds to come. We live in a historic town, and we need to make decisions that are commensurate with that and with that in mind. As city council member, I will be a good steward. When we think of stewardship, it's the careful planning, protection, and preservation of something. And I will be a good steward of your lands, of your tax dollars, and of this community. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Moss.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. I want to talk a little bit about the process for doing this, and it dawned on me the other day that these kind of forums are really nice for information, but they didn't tell you much of anything about how you really need to look at the person and what they would do. It's not look at it's what have they done is kind of important, I think. If you want to take a look at what I've done and what I've accomplished since I've been here in Bastrop, my wife will not let me give you the address, but most people know where we live. Take a drive by our house on some Sunday afternoon and take a look at what we spent our time and money to develop that really blends into the historic district of Bastrop. I think that's highly important. We moved here because of the historic district, and we have spent a lot of time and money to make absolutely sure. The house has been on tour that's 2 years old by the museum, Bastrop Museum, chose us to be on there. And most people gone through it says, well, how old is this house? When I say 2 years, they have, like, what? It looks like it's 100 years old. And we're proud of that. If you want to know what I've done, as far as I'm big on recreation, I think it's very, very important. And we have built a 300-member recreation facility on abandoned tennis courts behind Tahitian Village. Not with the city's help. They've guided us a little bit, like, get out there, do it yourself. So we did that very thing. And we're very proud of that. And look what the people have actually done. In order to do this kind of thing, you need a servient heart. And I think that's what a lot of problem with our people, we forgot that. You need to serve. We're here to serve. And I'm very proud to be able to have the opportunity to serve this town, because it's time for me to give back, like I said. And I think I can apply some good common sense solutions to any problems that we will have. Thank you.
Ms. Meyer.
Again, I want to thank the Chamber for this forum tonight. I want to thank all of you here, and I want to thank all the people that are watching. In closing, I'd like to say that in my experience for 37 years now being downtown business owner and being on the Planning and Zoning Commission, I have the knowledge, skills, and expertise to direct and help our citizens in the growth of this town. However, another very valuable thing that I have is heart and character for this town. I love this town. I love Bastrop. The city serves its citizens. You are our customers. We're here for you. I ask for your vote to help us maintain the charm, spirit, and health of Bastrop for everyone. Thank you.
Well, Bastrop, you've got some excellent candidates here. You got to go out and vote, though. Take care. Becky?
Did you know we have an At the Heart of Business campaign going on? Speaking to the heart. Anyways, I just want to say, wow. We have done 20 plus of these candidate forums. I think we've had some of the best questions ever submitted, and these candidates did an absolute fabulous job having these questions peppered at them and not knowing what was coming. So I want a round of applause for this group. I'm glad I don't live in the city limits and I don't have a vote, so because I wouldn't want to have to make a decision, because this is going to be difficult. But first, this does not happen on its own. I have got to acknowledge some amazing individuals who helped with this tonight. One is Cornian Bailey back here behind the camera. He's 3 weeks on the job. He got a little bit of coaching last Tuesday, and tonight he was all by himself back there trying to pull this off. So anyways, appreciate you being here tonight late, especially with a young one at home. So round of applause for Cornian. To my Government Affairs Committee, chaired by Dr. Christy Lee, and our Board of Directors, chaired by Evan Moylan, I have to thank them for supporting this initiative. Again, Carrie Fossler, thank you so much for being here and giving of your time so graciously for this initiative. And then, of course, Judge Charlie Stone, thank you for your professionalism and making this happen and providing this service to our citizens in Bastrop and Bastrop County. And finally, again, thank you, candidates. I'm wowed. I'm glad again, It's going to be a difficult decision. I will ask you at the very end if you guys could stay. We'd love to get a picture of the four of you together for social media and to promote the next election cycle on May 6th. So this initiative was started in December of 2015. Kevin Pluckett, as he mentioned, was on the Government Affairs Committee. I was chaired at that time by Lee Harrell, and we came back and we just had this idea about starting BastropVotes.com, and today I feel like it is a very successful initiative, bringing great information to the citizens of Bastrop and Bastrop County. Again, we hope you'll check out our website, make an informed decision, and choose wisely on May 6th. We will transition this room. We have another candidate forum following this. It will start at 7:30 and go to 9, and it'll be for candidates for the mayor's race. So if you're staying, great. We'll see you for the next half an hour, hour and a half or so. If not, please have a safe trip, and good night.